Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. Today is 24th of June 2021 and these are the stories that will be under discussion during the course of the show. We will begin with the meeting that is to happen between Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi and the Kashmiri leaders, in which Narendra Modi is going to somehow try to pacify the Kashmiri leaders as far as a future roadmap for Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is concerned. Whether that happens or not, what move will those Kashmiri leaders that have been invited, that include Mehbooba Mufti and others, will take? Of course, only time will tell. Nevertheless, it is a definite alarming situation as to the future of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, because there are rumors that the August 5th action could be sanctified by the current government in this meeting. This is our leading segment. Our second segment of the day, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the situation in Afghanistan and the US warning that no recognition of Taliban if Kabul is taken by force. This is of course a very stern warning that comes from the United States of America. Will this warning hold true if and when the Taliban do eventually take power in Afghanistan? This is going to be our second story of the day. Then we will talk about Prime Minister Imran Khan and Bill Gates that have discussed polio eradication and pandemic response in a telephonic conversation that occurred between the two of them, and of course also the public health challenges that have emanated after the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, it is very important to note that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is working with the government of Pakistan in different fields that include polio eradication. And finally, we'll be talking about Chitral's Abdul Wahid, who got into a student exchange program at the Oxford University, and when he returned, he was given a rousing welcome by his fraternity and those who were of his village, and of course he was treated as if he was a newlywed. Let's begin with our first segment, of course, and that concerns the meeting that is being held between Narendra Modi and the Kashmiri leaders as we speak today, in which supposedly not only the future roadmap of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is being discussed, but also there are rumors that there could be a sanctification of the August 5th action. More in the following report.
Key politicians from Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir are set to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi today for the first time after the special status of the disputed region was scrubbed 2 years ago. The talks are being seen as an attempt to legitimize the illegal draconian move of August 5th, which is the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A in 2019, followed by use of brute force and a long and crippling military and communications lockdown to stifle any indigenous opposition to the government's controversial move. Reportedly, Mr. Modi is not ready to back off from his hardline Hindu majoritarian policy regarding Kashmir, and pro-India politicians would not abide by their commitments with public, but will go by the individual political considerations. The BJP regime is apparently resuming the political process, but the move wouldn't satiate the demands of Kashmiri people and top Kashmiri leaders because the expectations from talks are limited in scope, centered around giving olive branch to politicians ahead of next state elections in the disputed region. Another expected Indian maneuver is the granting identity to the region through giving it statehood without autonomy, as the occupied area is currently a union territory. Statehood without restoration of special autonomous status for Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir would not be acceptable to Pakistan and people of occupied region. If New Delhi worryingly procrastinates the restoration of special status of occupied region, a rigorous civil war might erupt which will jolt the entire edifice of BJP rule. Revocation of a special constitutional status accorded to Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is a move that has drastically imperiled the security of South Asia.
To talk about this latest development and the situation that could arise from it, we've been joined by Advocate Pervez Ahmed. He's the General Secretary of the APHC. Thank you very much, Advocate Saab, to have joined us. Advocate Saab, how do you see this meeting that is going to happen between Narendra Modi and the Kashmiri leaders? What kind of outcome do you see coming out of it?
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank Pakistan Television for giving the APHC an opportunity to put our point of view before the viewers, as you are knowing the fact that APHC voices are being suppressed in occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and nothing is coming out what is happening in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The meeting is going on, and I will make a big correction with whom the Modi is holding the meeting this time. They are the leaders, they are the puppets and the cronies of the government of India. If we go back in 1947, when India occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and there was resentment and complete confusion instituted Jammu and Kashmir, and people were resisting against the occupation. They created a leader of their choice, that is Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah, and whose son is leading the delegation that is meeting to the Prime Minister of India today, and the meeting is going on. And they signed an agreement when they were, the constitution was in making in 1950. They signed a Delhi agreement, and under that agreement, Article 370 was incorporated in the constitution, and they gave him the powers to rule. They rigged the elections and make him as a puppet chief minister of the occupied Jammu and Kashmir. But what they did with that leader, who is the father of this Farooq Abdullah, after that, when he asked India for the implementation, what he has agreed with the government of India, he was put in the jail. And then there was another agreement in 1975, that is Indira Abdullah Accord, that at that time that they will empower him and he will be authorized to rule the government, and he will be authorized to rule the state as per his wish. But that agreement didn't work. After that, we have seen the Farooq Abdullah. When he came into the government, his government was toppled by the Jagmohan, and governor's rule was imposed. Then comes the term of the Mahbooba Mufti. BJP signed an agreement in 2014 with the Mahbooba Mufti alliance, that they will work with this Mahbooba Mufti, and they have seen that what happened to that alliance. So the Indian intelligence, after this, when they abrogated Article 35A, they created 35 and 370. They created new political parties. You see, Apni Party, which is led by Altaf Bukhari. He is part of the delegation. Sajjad Lone has been always talking that Modi is his big brother. So we have to first of all see that who are leading and who are negotiating on behalf of the Kashmiris with the government of India. For the last 30 years, we have seen that the organization who is representing the sentiments of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, that is all parties, Wahid Khan, they were invited by the government of India, and they refused to meet with the government of India under the Indian constitution. So if we see the past history, we have seen that India is always engaging these puppets and giving an impression to the international community that they have made an engagement. And presently, when we have seen that what is the importance of and significance of this dialogue which is going on in New Delhi with these puppets. At this time, we have seen on 5th of August, when government of India, on 2019, when it abrogated this Article 370 and 35A, we have seen there was a huge cry around the globe. There were the 2 sessions of the Security Council. There were the reports from different international organizations, human rights organizations. They put the Jammu and Kashmir under strict lockdown. There was a communication blockade, and Kashmir faced every kind of loss, and they put thousands of people behind the bars. But when we have seen that, at the same time, I am highly thankful to Prime Minister of Pakistan, that he portrayed the actual picture of Narendra Modi before the world community, that he is a fascist.
And not on one forum, but on different forums.
He is a fascist. And the international community has taken it. It was well taken.
All right.
And secondly, there is a lot of pressure from international community that they have to create the political space for the Kashmiris who are struggling for their right to self-determination. And unfortunately, what India is trying to impress upon the world, that they are engaging, but they are not making it clear with whom they are engaging and who are the people.
But don't the international powers like the United States or the UN know? Because the APHC is telling it today in a show. I'm sure the international agencies, the intelligence agencies also know what is actually transpiring, but there is silence on all of that. Why is that so?
No, basically there is no silence. There have concerns have been all along shown by the world community, by different international organizations, because we have to see that on one hand, you see how India is behaving. On one hand, they have engaged this puppet leadership in the dialogue, but on the second hand, they have started an agitation, one kind of agitation from Jammu province. There are voices are coming from different so-called leaders that Jammu should be made another province of state of Jammu. It should be again bifurcated. They are creating a confusion. What the government of India is desiring, they want to bifurcate, trifurcate the state and want to confine this movement to a particular area and give an impression that it is only the valley where the people are raising the voices against the Indian occupation. So they are giving impression to this extent, but whether it will work or not, we have to see that when on 5th of August, one thing I will make one thing, if India is satisfied that everything is going all right, if they are going to make a meeting today and they will come something good from this, why there is a red alert in India? Why at this time they have suspended the internet services? They know whatever they will decide with this so-called leadership, people will not accept it. Definitely it will take time to people to understand what India is managing intercommunal.
This red alert, this internet blackout also reminds me of August 5th, 2019.
You see, if they are going to make something, anything, they reach an agreement with this so-called leadership, definitely there will be a resentment from the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and the only method available.
But Advocate Saab, the resentment has always been coming from the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, but nothing has happened of it.
I will add one thing more. This leadership with whom India is talking today, you see, when on 5th of August, when they abrogated Article 370, these all leaders were put behind the bars.
Yes,
they were put behind the bars for more than 1.5 years. One is very much surprised how shameless they are that yesterday they were in the lockup. They were not allowed to move. Today they are entering in the negotiation with the government of India, and they knowing what India has did with their forefathers when they were in power, and even what they had did with them. But unfortunately, one thing is they have lost their perks, privileges, and every image, their credibility among the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and the only choice for them is because either they have to join the popular sentiment that is Azadi, or they have to stay with the India, and they think it is better for them. Because when you have to join the struggle, you have to face the hardships.
Now, Mehbooba Mufti said, and I quote, she said that the PDP or her party wants is the restoration of the pre-August 5th, 2019 status of Indian Jammu and Kashmir. Do you feel this will have any positive effect if, for example, the situation is restored to pre-August 5, 2019 and Articles 370 and 35A are put back?
Definitely, if Mahbooba is in a position to put across this point before the Narendra Modi, it will restore to some extent her image, because she has always portrayed the soft separatism.
Her image is one thing, Advocate Saab, but what the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir are going through is another thing altogether. You know, it's hundreds of thousands of people versus a couple of people.
Definitely, because the people who are with Mahbooba Mufti, it is a very small quantity of the people. She was selling to them since she had been doing the politics in Jammu and Kashmir, that she is always fighting for the rights of the people. But in 2014, when she made an alliance with the government of India, she had lost almost her credibility. Now she is coming back to his soft separatism and trying to make believe to the people of Jammu and Kashmir that she is pro-people leader, and she has always been talking spade a spade. It is very difficult for her, because it is for people of Jammu and Kashmir at this time, almost everyone who is talking with India is being considered as a traitor if he talks with India. If they go for a dialogue individually without ignoring the third party, that is important party, that is Pakistan, people of Jammu and Kashmir, and government of India. Any person who will talk individually to India, ignoring the important party, he will not get any kind of support from the people of Jammu.
But that has been the design of India all the time, hasn't it?
Always. You see, we have seen in past, India once talked that if all parties Hurriyat Conference enters into dialogue with the government of India, Sikha is the limit. We will give every kind of facility whether it may be development, it may be jobs, but we have been always resisting. And I promise you, if we will tomorrow we just give the consent and we agree to for dialogue, all this group will be thrown to other side, and APHC will be taken on the table. But APHC is not going to talk.
Exactly, but advocates have to talk about reality of things. We know what is happening, how they are changing the demography of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the domiciles, the number of domiciles that have been given, and how slowly and steadily the number of forces that are still present in the region as we speak. I mean, since 2019, and I don't know what's going to happen post this meeting between the Kashmiri leaders and Narendra Modi. How important is the work that the Pakistani leaders, that include our Prime Minister, our Foreign Minister, have been doing on the different fora? Our Prime Minister, of course, has always said that normalizing relations with India is possible only if it restores Kashmir's semi-autonomy, and if we normalize it, it would be a betrayal to the people of Kashmir. Now, when Pakistan says any talks mean that the first thing on the agenda should be what is happening in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Will India ever relent? Will it ever accept to talk about this issue with Pakistan?
Surely they have to talk, today or tomorrow. Because we see, one thing is that the bone of contention between the two countries is the Kashmir. We have seen that almost 4 wars between the two countries. The bone of contention was the Kashmir. When there any kind of disturbance in the Kashmir, we see escalation on the borders. Everybody is talking that why international community is not taking the serious note of what India is doing. One thing is clear, that we should keep in mind that India is bigger in size. India's population is 4 to 5 times bigger than Pakistan, and definitely when we are talking of trade and business, the countries who are doing the business with India, they take this factor into the consideration that it is a bigger in size, and we cannot ignore them when coming to the business. But at the same time, they are just ignoring one factor, that Kashmir is struck between 3 nuclear powers, India, Pakistan and China. And we have always seen whenever there was an escalation on the borders or ceasefire on the LOC, it was the Kashmir. Whether it was Pulwama attack, it was parliamentary attack, whoever did it, whether it be did Indian intelligence agencies, there have been always, when we see the roots, it always connected to the Indian intelligence agencies. But we have seen there was the escalation in the past, and international community had to intervene, because when there was a ceasefire, it was made by different international players. So if they will keep this issue burning and they will do business with India, how they will expect that their businesses will be safe and their investments will be safe in India? Today or the tomorrow, world has to realize, international community has to realize that they have to resolve the issue. And secondly, India has applied all means, coercion, force, they have detentions, Public Safety Act, draconian laws, they have almost finished their economy, the education. Every aspect of the life is disturbed in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. We have seen half widows. But even then, Kashmiris didn't surrender. So you see, when there is a resolve from the people of Jammu and Kashmir, they are coming on the streets, they are boycotting the elections. How it is possible that international community will keep on ignoring this factor? It may take time, but if there is a resolve, we have in our baggage the blood of more than 100,000 people. We have seen, we have the half widows. So it is very difficult for India to control this, because every Kashmiri who is born, his slogan is freedom from the Indian
and self-determination, the right to self-determination. That is the main issue. Thank you very much, Advocate Pervez Ahmed Saab, Secretary General of the APHC, to have talked to us very candidly about this very important situation, and of course how it's going to change post the meeting between Narendra Modi and these Kashmiri leaders. We will be keeping you updated as far as those developments are concerned, ladies and gentlemen. But let's come to our second segment, and that concerns peace in Afghanistan and what is happening as the Taliban are taking areas slowly and steadily. The US says that Taliban, the situation will not be recognized, that there will be no recognition if Taliban do take Kabul by force. What are those details that emanate out of it? What is the future of the Afghan peace process and the future of Afghanistan as well? We'll be talking with our guests in this second segment, but before that, a short report.
As the fierce seed and regain saga continues between Afghanistan's armed forces and Taliban, US warned the world will not accept a government imposed by force in Afghanistan. Against the backdrop of an intelligence report cautioning that the current setup in Kabul could collapse within 6 months after the American withdrawal, State Department spokesperson Ned Price in a press briefing tied US financial assistance to formation of credible, legitimate government in Kabul. According to American press, the belligerent groups have expanded their control over Afghanistan to more than 50 districts since the hasty timeline of US withdrawal surfaced. These dynamics might further complicate the Afghan peace process, which is supported by Afghan public and international community, but is debilitated by many obstacles such as weak central government afflicted by ethnic, sectarian and tribal differences, sharing power, disarming and reintegrating Taliban fighters into society and determining the future of the country's democratic institutions and constitution. While hinting intra-Afghan peace settlement, Deputy Taliban leader Sirajuddin Haqqani, writing in a New York Times, stated that if we can reach an agreement with a foreign enemy, we must be able to resolve intra-Afghan disagreement through talks. Many Afghans, exhausted by a protracted, forever war that has killed thousands of people, forced millions to flee as refugees, fear that a half-backed US withdrawal could spark new conflict and eventually allow the belligerents to regain control. Since the US President Joe Biden's announcement to withdraw all American troops from Afghanistan by 11th of September, the country stands at the crossroads. As the region might become a breeding ground of terror networks, regional players are concerned about the future trajectory of country post-US withdrawal.
Now, to talk more about that, we've been joined by Lieutenant General Raza Muhammad Khan, who's a defense analyst. Sir, thank you very much to have joined us. Sir, all the different details that are coming up to us as far as the situation in Afghanistan is concerned, how troublesome do you feel it is, and what do you expect in the coming days?
I think the situation is fluid, and we hope that it would get clearer, as time passes. But it is important, that there is a formal agreement between all the warring factions, all the contenders, before the 11th of September, when all the foreign forces would leave Afghanistan. Of course, the Prime Minister and the foreign ministers have very categorically stated that Pakistan has no favorite among the contending political groups in Afghanistan. But I'd like to add here that Pakistan must continue its efforts, that we have a government, a regime in Afghanistan which is stable and which shares some of the major concerns of Pakistan's, and which are also prepared to address these. We have made these concerns, I think, very well known, and they are both in the interest of Pakistan and Afghanistan, and that includes, cooperation and support on border security, fencing, return of refugees, dismantling the raw TPP networks inside Afghanistan, support to the CPEC and support of our other policies at the international level, and eliminating Daesh and ISIS, etc. Now, the crucial question is that we have actually supported the Troika Plus agreement, which comprises mainly 10 points. And in that, one of the major points that we have accepted is that we do not support the return of the Emirates in Afghanistan, and that is actually anchored in the United Nations Security Council resolutions. So I think even on that, we'll have to wait and see what is going to be the final shape of the new Afghan constitution, and whether a Loya Jarga in Afghanistan will be able to decide whether Afghanistan is going to be an emirate in the future or it is going to be a republic. So I think one will have to wait and see. And we hope that, the Taliban as well as the Afghan government and others, they are in a position to directly negotiate with each other inside Afghanistan rather than outside Afghanistan, whether it is in Doha or any other place.
All right. Now, sir, also speaking of the Afghan government, Bismillah Khan Mohammadi has been made the new defense minister of the Afghan government. And what he says, and I quote, he says, there is a new robust and effective plan to retake areas from which we have pulled back our forces. Do you feel that this is calling for more escalation in Afghanistan? Because we know that the Afghan Taliban are slowly and steadily taking different areas of Afghanistan as we speak.
I think there was a very clear statement by our interior minister on that, and he made a mention of how many districts the Taliban's are in control of, and the UN, the US CENTCOM commander also made a mention of that, and it is generally believed that there are 80 districts in Afghanistan which are in possession of the Taliban, and the remaining are either being contested or they are in control of the Afghan government.
All
While the Taliban have postponed their spring offensive as as a consequence of their deal with the United States. But right now, by sending peace delegations and jirgas to various government posts and to the armed forces, one is seeing on social media the voluntary surrender of district administrations and also the ANA personnel to the Taliban. So, as I said earlier, I think one will have to wait and see, and there will be claims and counterclaims from the Afghan government and the Taliban, but they all have to be verified. Uh, to that, I will add, the very important issue of the role of Pakistan and all that. I think Pakistan has taken a very logical and wise decision and not to grant any basis to the United States or anyone else, so that they could then be effective against anyone inside Afghanistan. But I think there would be intelligence sharing between the United States, Afghanistan, and all the Troika plus countries. And I'm talking now of Russia, China, the United States, and Pakistan, because they all have committed to a safe and a stable and united Afghanistan that is free from terrorists. So I think on that matter, intelligence sharing by Pakistani agencies with all these four countries, I think would be warranted, and it will be in the interest of Afghanistan and all these countries as well.
All right. Now, you know, sir, that in the next couple of days, Ashraf Ghani Saab and Abdullah both are going to meet the US leadership in Washington. And do you feel that is going to put any change or as far as the US tactic or the US future strategy for Afghanistan is concerned? Or do you feel there's going to be status quo?
First of all, I think these leaders will be very clearly told, and if needed, pressurized to follow the agreements of the Troika Plus, which is that 10 points agenda, which also very clearly states that the present Afghan government must now overtly and openly start negotiation with the Taliban on a future dispensation for Afghanistan. That they are not doing at present, or they are reluctant to do so because I think they are more interested in perpetuation of their rule in Afghanistan, which does not suit anyone and which is against the spirit of the Troika Plus agreement, which, as I said again, is supported by the United Nations Security Council. They would also be probably getting assurances that if the Taliban try to get Kabul or any other provincial capital by force, then the United States is not going to recognize that Taliban government or regime which has used force to come into power. They probably would also be given assurances that the United States and the Western countries will continue to support Afghanistan only on the condition that there is an interim government and there is a rapprochement between the present government officials and the Taliban. I think that will be important. But at the same time, I think Pakistan's concern that they may actually put the blames of everything that is going wrong in Afghanistan on Pakistan. And Pakistan has very wisely declared that this meeting should not be used for the blame game or putting all the responsibilities on Pakistan. In that, again, in the Troika Plus agreement, I think the role of the United Nations, an active role of the United Nations is crucial. And I think one way how the United Nations can now be more effective as the Western forces thin out is a consideration of a UN peacekeeping or peace enforcing force that should actually fill the vacuum, which is otherwise
But
feared to
that's
be
a very
filled.
interesting point that you've noted, and this is my last question to you, Lieutenant General Saab. Do you feel that the Afghan power, whosoever takes center stage now, whether it be the Afghan Taliban or a consensus government or a national form of government that includes all the elements of the Afghan political scenario, do you feel they will accept a UN peacekeeping mission in Afghanistan that would take over?
I think they would need it for during the time of this interim government, and also for keeping the law and order during the fresh elections. So I think they should actually themselves request international community, request the UN Secretary General that as the Western forces leave, and if there is a danger of the ANA actually deserting, which it is doing, at least the rate is at least 9 to 10%, then I think it will not be sufficient. And then they will not be seen as neutral. But a UN force will be seen as neutral, and they can help and support them and bring a lot of stability to Afghanistan.
Well, let's hope for stability. Let's hope for an Afghan-owned and Afghan-led peace process, as our government has been saying over the years. And let's hope for the future of Afghanistan, a bright future that will also mean a bright future for this region and a bright future for Pakistan. Thank you very much, Ravish General Raza Muhammad Khan Saab, to have joined us and to have talked to us about of course, the emerging situation as far as Afghanistan is concerned. A lot of developments are occurring as we speak, and we will keep you abreast on those developments as and when they come along. Let's come to our last two segments, ladies and gentlemen. The first is a telephonic conversation between our Prime Minister Imran Khan and Bill Gates, who've discussed polio eradication and the response to the COVID-19 pandemic across the globe and in Pakistan, and what are the challenges that have emanated from these two, where both are different challenges in their own respect. Whereas polio, as far as polio is concerned, Pakistan is one of the few countries in the world that still has these polio infections, and it is primordial that all the different movements that come around by the government, in which the children of 5 years of age, 5 years and minus, are given the polio drops, should be given full cooperation by the parents, by the teachers, by the local communities in all of these areas where the polio teams go. On the other hand, as far as the COVID pandemic is concerned and the reaction and the challenges that emerge, the first thing that comes to mind is A, following the SOPs, and B, getting yourselves vaccinated. The vaccines are available in Pakistan, people are getting themselves vaccinated. It is important and extremely important, I would say, that everyone gets himself or herself vaccinated, so that we can reduce the flow of this pandemic across different societies, because the virus is unseen and we don't know who has it and who has the symptoms. Somebody could even be asymptomatic. It's very important in this whole scenario that leaders such as Bill Gates and our Prime Minister Imran Khan talk together and work out future strategies as far as these two important diseases are concerned, the pandemic as well as polio. Let's hope for the best for Pakistan. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, let's come to Chitral, where student Abdul Wahid got to study at the Oxford University because he was at a student under a student exchange program, and he returned very recently, and he was given a rousing welcome, just like a new bridegroom would be given by all of his fraternity, because of course it's a matter of celebration when a young boy from Chitral goes all the way to Oxford University, whether even if it is for a couple of months. It is a source of pride and it is a source of delight for all of those, because nevertheless he now has the stamp of having had an education from a university abroad, and he will bring forth that education and that training to people of his community. It is through education that we can change change the world. This is a tool that makes the world a better place. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow. New segments, new stories. Stay safe. Get yourselves vaccinated. Allah Hafiz.